Today on The John Ankerberg Show.
75% of the world's population will be in cities by 2020. Does the church have a strategy to reach the people in their big cities? If they don't, the Great Commission will never be finished.
We're not talking about rocket science here. We're talking about simple tools to reach the world for Christ. But it works.
We've gone into each city intensively for 30 days, working closely with the churches on the ground, a symphony of media. 30 days saying that God gives you the power to change. Call this number. Everyone that calls the number, they get a 100-page tailor-made book for that city containing the most powerful testimonies of how God changed lives.
75% of all the people living on Earth today live in one of the 500 megacities of the world. Consider the astonishing number of people living in just 8 of these cities. 38 million people live in Tokyo. 25 million live in Seoul. 13 million people live in Moscow. 8 million people live in New York. 4 million live in Los Angeles. 2 million live in Havana. 21 million people live in Mexico City. And 30 million live in Jakarta. Does the Christian church have a strategy for getting all of the people in any one of these megacities all talking about Jesus at the same time over a 30-day period of time? One man does. And today you will meet Hannu Hauka from Finland. His organization, Great Commission Ministries, has helped churches in 100 megacities of the world conduct evangelistic campaigns to get millions of people in their city talking about, thinking about, and asking questions about how Jesus can transform their lives. How does Hannu do it? Why is God greatly blessing his strategy? Today you will find out on this special edition of the John Ankerberg Show. Welcome to our program. I'm John Ankerberg. Thanks for joining me. I've got a great guest for you. He's flown in from Helsinki, Finland, and he's on our set, and he's going to leave our set, and he's going to Cuba. He is one of the most unique Christians that I've met in the world, and God is using him greatly. I've met some great people in India, and Hannu from Finland came down to India because he was having a mega city crusade in Mumbai that happened just before that. He was checking up on some of his folks, and so I've gotten to know him along the way. He has been given by God the strategy of how do you move the mega cities, the cities that are over 1 million people in population, some that go up to 35 million people in one city. How can you get that entire city talking about Jesus, thinking about Jesus? He has come up with a way of doing that, and I think it's just incredible. But there are some great needs, some things that we're going to talk about today that we want to help him with. But first of all, I want to introduce Hannu via a clip to show you how God started him out, how God used his ministry in the beginning in the Soviet Union. Watch this clip.
The roots of the ministry go back to the 1970s when a young Canadian, Hannu Hauka, married a Soviet Christian dissident named Laura, and they began work in shortwave radio ministry broadcasting the gospel in Russian back into the USSR from Finland. Although there was no way to broadcast television into the Soviet Union, Hannu and Laura still felt compelled to develop a Russian TV ministry. So they bought one videotape machine to create a translation of a Bible cartoon series into Russian. A miracle took place when Soviet State TV called them to request the program for broadcast across all 11 time zones of the USSR. As a result, over 1 million responses came in the mail from all over the Soviet Union. Many of today's church leaders in Russia credit this Bible cartoon series as their first exposure to the gospel. The eventual collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 opened more doors to take the gospel to Russia. Churches could now operate freely, and many new church congregations were born. But the greatest opportunity came at the dawn of the 21st century.
You know, in 2003, we came to a point where we started to ask ourselves serious questions, and we started to ask the churches on the ground in Russia, in the big cities, serious questions about how we were doing, how we were faring with the Great Commission. We said, If Jesus really meant what he said when he said, "Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to all, to all peoples and all nations," how are we faring? How many are you reaching? How many visit your churches, and how many people come in contact with your ministries in the course of 1 year? Some of the churches says, well, we have maybe 10, 20, maybe 30, 40 non-Christians would visit our church services during the course of a year. Some churches says, well, maybe 100. Some of the dynamic churches would say, well, maybe 1,000 people. We ask the question, well, what about the 995,000 other people who never come in touch with the church? Did Jesus not mean them as well? And so the churches and the pastors will say, yeah, we have a problem here. Where we said, okay, let's get together, let's pray. Let's devise a strategy to reach the 1 million residents of this city over a course of 30 days effectively, so that they will know what Jesus Christ, what God's Son, Jesus Christ, is offering them. That's how this whole thing started. We utilized all the media for 30 days. That is primetime television, secular TV, radio, billboards, mega screens, outside mega screens, public transport system, the outside of buses, newspapers, flyers into homes, everything we could get our hands on. We did it for 30 days to impact the city. It was saturation. All the advertising that takes place over the course of 30 days has a call-in number. So we direct all the traffic to a call center, and we receive tens of thousands of telephone calls, tens of thousands of families that are struggling with problems that are very real, breakup of the family, 4 million children on the streets, meaning 4 million homes at least, according to official statistics, that are just broken, where the children are not even at home, and we think the real figure is probably double, if not triple that. There's a huge problem in Russia. 40% of the male population struggling with alcohol, and God comes into this picture saying, I will give you the power to change through my Son, Jesus Christ. This book, God Gives You the Power to Change, it's been printed in up to about 10 languages now, but the main language, of course, is Russian. We'll have over 1 million books in print and distributed by the time, many of the people see this program.
Following the end of a megacity media saturation evangelism campaign, the churches on the ground go into high gear with follow-up. It's a time when thousands of people are led to Christ through one-on-one visitation.
Now, folks, what you saw is amazing, but that was just the start. How many of these megacity campaigns have you conducted since that time?
We have conducted, since that time, about 70 different megacity campaigns in different countries of the world. We did 40 in Russia.
Yeah. Now, here's the question that we're contemplating. All of you that are pastors and leaders of churches out there, I want you to listen to this. There are over 500 megacities in the world. That means that the population is 1 million or more. Now, the question, if you're a Christian in that city, how are you going to get the whole city at one time talking about and thinking about Jesus? And that's the ideas that he's come up with. God gave these ideas to him. Let's take an example. A couple years ago, I met you in Mumbai, and the fact is Mumbai has got so many people. How in the world did you even get the word out when you started planning about how to get the word out for people to call in, and that you were going to cover television for a certain amount of time, and before you even started the television, and the television wasn't you, I want you to tell the folks what it is you do.
Well, when we first go into a mega city like Mumbai, we talk to the church leaders. We say, you need to come together and agree that you really want this for your city.
Yeah, and I love this. Yeah. You won't even come unless the churches are willing to work with you.
Correct.
Why? Because you'll have so many people that'll call in that have to be followed up. You've got to have thousands of churches to follow up all the response.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like when Jesus and the disciples, they were out the Sea of Galilee, they got a big catch of fish, and the nets started to break, and they had to bring in other boats to help them to bring in that catch of fish. The same thing happens in these mega cities. The response is so large that the nets start to break with these churches because of the abundance of response that needs to be taken care of, processed, and handled. That you just have to have X amount of churches involved, otherwise it's not going to work. The nets will just fall apart.
All right. I get a kick out of how you came into this advertising in Mumbai. Tell the folks how many places you put signs about this television special that you were going to have for a certain amount of nights with people in Mumbai, movie stars and people in singing and leaders in the business community, people from that city that were Christians that were willing to give their testimony that the people knew. So their own language, their own culture, And you advertise this in advance. Tell the people all the spots you put your advertising.
Well, we went to the media agencies in Mumbai, and we said to them we want to do what do you call a media package. So we bought thousands of locations and sites where we put up billboards, we put up different kinds of advertisements in the newspapers, which had printings of 500,000 to 1 million each in the city of Mumbai. We had the daily newspapers would carry them. We have them on radio. We had them on the internet, social media. We had websites. We had, so it was everywhere. People could not avoid the message of this campaign in the 30 days that it was ongoing in that city.
But tell the people about the trains.
Well, yeah, I had never thought about trains before, so we bumped into the representative of Mumbai Railways as we talked about these mega.
And he wasn't even a Christian.
He wasn't a Christian. He was a Hindu, for all I know. And he listened to me, and as I explained what we're going to do with advertising, he said, "Why don't you try trains?" I said, "Well, I've never done that, or we never even thought about it." He said, "Well, in Mumbai, we have 9 million people commuting into the city every single day. Why don't you put these same ads up in the train cars, inside, outside, in the train stations? You've got a captive audience of 9 million people every single day." And I was kind of embarrassed. I'm saying, this man has more missions vision than I do, and I'm supposed to be the missionary.
And so you put it up. So you had 9 million people every day are watching these ads, and the ads were Power to Change.
Yes.
And it's very interesting. Tell us how you chose these titles.
Well, we have different titles for different cultures. For India, we used the power to change. In other words, read 15 stories that can change your life. God gives you the power to change, or experience the power to change. When we go into Islamic societies, we have the power to forgive, the power to reconcile. God gives you the power to forgive people and to reconcile, but most of all, it comes through Jesus Christ. Reconciliation through Jesus gives you the power to also forgive your enemies. Then we would have, for example, in Cuba, we use experience the power to transform, the power of transformation in your own life. So we do use different titles.
Yeah, and then talk about you have a call center and you train the Christian people. How many people did you train before this thing went on the air and everybody started calling in?
In Mumbai, we trained 15,000 volunteers out of 1,700 churches that were involved in that campaign. 5,000 of those were for the call center because we had 400 phones working like 24/7. And then we had 10,000 volunteers that were trained as couriers, would actually take the book and bring it to the people that had called in and said, "We would like to have the book that can change our lives as well."
Yeah. Now, Mumbai is a huge city, mostly Hindu. The next biggest portion would be Muslims. Mm-hmm. And the fact is that you had them call in to this number. You picked out people from Bollywood, like our Hollywood movie stars, and great singers, and politicians, and businessmen. And then you had people that were alcoholics, people that were involved with drugs. And so you had all these stories in your media presentation. How many nights did you play your media presentation?
It was 30 days, basically back to back, using the secular TV stations at a very good evening, evening time.
Yeah, prime time.
Just in the area of prime time. But we also had special events. We had special events in the slums, the Dharavi slum, which is one of the biggest ones in Mumbai. 8,000 people, almost 10,000 people came to listen to Johnny Lever, who was a Bollywood movie star. And of those, 3,500 people made decisions for Jesus in the slums.
How many phone calls, how many people called in to receive this booklet?
Well, there was almost 400,000 telephone calls came in. And let me say that the record that we have for one day in these campaigns actually came out of Bangalore. It was, in one day, we received 18,900 telephone calls. And when the churches saw that, they said, our nets are going to break at this point. We can't handle almost 20,000 people calling in one day asking for this book that would give them the power to change their lives.
What I love is you've got these churches that actually, their members said they would actually take the books to wherever it was in Mumbai, okay? I'm not sure I could get all of our Americans to take it into New York or Los Angeles or Chicago. I mean, that gets to be dangerous in certain areas.
Well, yeah, that's where the rubber meets the road. And in India, of course, you have, fundamentalist Hindus as well. And in other societies, you have fundamentalist Islamists. So when you say that, the church says we're going to take this book to people that we've never met and we don't even know, There's always a risk factor involved, but the churches are saying, for the sake of the people that are perishing without Jesus Christ, we'll take the risk.
Next program, we'll talk about more about how you follow up on these people, which is fabulous. But let's switch over. You've also, of all places, you had one of these outreaches in Iraq, in the city of Erbil.
Yeah.
Okay? You got over 2 million people in that city.
Yeah.
Now, this is a completely Muslim spot in the middle of a war zone in Iraq.
Yeah.
How in the world did you pull this off?
Well, when I first went into Erbil in northern Iraq, I said to myself, I said, the chances of this thing ever happening in this city are pretty slim. I didn't really have a whole lot of faith in that, but because the pastors had asked us to come in for consultation, I said to them, well, this is how it works, and would you like to do that? I mean, is this something that you want to really do? This is a dangerous area. And they said, yes, we do want to do it. Now, they said there's only one problem. We have to get permission from the supreme commander of the security forces for all of northern Iraq. Not the president, not the prime minister, but the supreme commander of the security forces of northern Iraq. So when we go to him, he's going to ask us a sticky question. He's going to ask us, what is the message? And up to that time, we had used power to change, right? Well, in Arabic, power and change are a bad mix.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing. So they said, is there another alternative? And, you know, as we, prayerfully considered it, it was like, God just dropped it out of heaven saying, power to forgive, to reconcile. How's that? And so when I mentioned that to them, you could see from their faces, bullseye. They went to the supreme commander of the security forces in northern Iraq, and he listened. He said, well, you guys are going to do this big mega city campaign in northern Iraq, in the city of Erbil. Really? Well, what's your message? And that was a sticky question. And when they said, it is the power to forgive, the supreme commander, he said this, okay, if that is your message, you have a green light now. We will provide you with security. Do it. There is nothing that this nation needs more than a message of forgiveness, of reconciliation. There is so much killing, bitterness, revenge, hatred in this country. We need that message. Go for it.
You're leaving our stage here in a little while, and you're going to fly to Cuba, okay? And some fantastic things are happening in Cuba right now as a result of your going in there with one of these mega city campaigns. You went into Havana. Tell me about it.
Well, when we first came to Havana, it was another place where we said, I mean, is there media available to do a mega city media campaign? There was only about 8 or 10 billboards in the whole city, and everyone had a portrait of Fidel Castro. We couldn't really go to them and say, could you take that down for 1 month and let's have our heroes be put up?
Deal, yeah.
I wouldn't do that. So there was a limit. It was limited regarding media. But the churches came in big time, and they said, let's handle this, compensate for the lack of media. And what they did was they took 150,000 books and they went out onto the streets, and they reached 100,000 Cubans in the city of Havana, just ministering to them, one-on-one, talking to them. Out of that came 60,000 people that said, yeah, we want to have this book and we want to read how our lives can change as well, how we can experience the power to change, or transformation, as they said in Spanish. And out of that, at last count, about a month ago, the bishop for a big denomination said that we have already counted that about 16,000 people have already made decisions for Jesus and are in the church. And we've never seen that happen in such a short time in this island state of Cuba.
It's just amazing that this is happening right off of our shores here in America, but we never dreamed that Cuba would open up that much.
This is an unprecedented time of harvest in Cuba. We are witnessing it with our own eyes as we speak. And for that harvest to continue, they need those extra 150,000 books ASAP.
Yeah. But you started in the Soviet Union, as we saw in the clip. And the fact is that you've got an emergency request from the churches, over 1,600 churches that actually were new churches that were born in some of your citywide outreaches in Russia while the doors were still open, okay? And they have requested 1 million booklets because they want to get them to their friends before anything else happens, but the window is closing fast. In other words, the law has already been written, you're not supposed to do this, but you've actually got a printing presses in Russia. Talk about this, that are ready to do this.
Yeah, unfortunately, in July of last year, President Putin undersigned a new law, which was a severely restrictive law on church ministry and evangelism, missions inside Russia. The churches have not, they've had to slow down. It's like going 120 on, let's say 70 miles an hour on the interstate, and suddenly they slap a 20-mile limit in front of your eyes without warning. And that was a slowdown that the churches experienced from 70 miles an hour to 20 in like overnight. And so they've slowed down, but they haven't stopped, and they have asked us for 1 million extra books, which they need very soon, because there's still a limited time that we can print these books inside Russia. You can't print them outside and ship them in, but you can still print them at least one printing house in Russia. And so we are urgently asking that our friends help us to get those 1 million books into the hands of the churches ASAP.
Yeah, and we're going to try to help you with that. One last question, we only got about a minute left, and that is that we just recently started on your television station in Finland. For 3 years, I've been telling the people there's this person up in Finland that's been wanting us to come on, and we want to go on Finland and Sweden and Norway and Denmark, okay? And now we've started. Why did you want the John Ankerberg Show to come into those countries?
Well, Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark are very, very secular, post-Christian societies, very humanistic. There's 80% of the people in our countries don't even believe that God exists anymore. And so because of that, the John Ankerberg Show is a perfect fit with what you're doing, with what God has allowed you to do, to be an apologetic for the case of the existence of God. Is just a perfect fit for our societies. We really need this show up in Sweden, Finland, Norway, and Denmark.
Yeah, and Lord willing, we're going to take these other countries as well, but that's why we ask for your support out there, folks. Now, next week, we're going to talk about some of the other cities. He's actually had one of these campaigns in Lebanon, and he's had it in Hamas territory. And he's going to talk about how that came about, and then just some amazing things that have happened there and in Honduras and other places that I want you to hear. But in a moment, I've got a personal word for you, so stay tuned. Folks, since we taped our interview with Hanu, in the last 9 weeks, the Russian government has massively cracked down on all of the evangelical churches across Russia with new laws and regulations. And Hanu has received an emergency request from 1,600 evangelical churches in Russia pleading for 1 million more Power to Change books to be sent there before the doors in Russia close for good. Providentially, Hanu still has access to printing presses in Siberia that are willing to print these books for him. But he fears sometime in the next 10 to 12 months that door will close to him. I talked with Hanu in Finland last week and asked him to describe for you what is happening to the evangelical churches in Russia right now. Listen.
Well, John, the Russian government has cracked down on all of the evangelical churches with new laws and restrictive regulations that have been added to the law that was signed by President Putin last year. To enforce these new laws, the government is forcing all evangelical churches in Russia to re-register their charter and prove that they are complying. What are the new laws? The government now states any evangelical church, any church with 50 members or more, is designated as a potential terrorist target, and as such they must hire and pay for government security agents to be on site and to attend every church service. Can you imagine that? In addition, every church is required to add very expensive metal detectors to the entrance of their church. Now, churches simply cannot afford to pay for these security measures. This is simply a way to crush the churches financially. So what happens if the churches cannot afford to comply with these new regulations? Well, the law says that only 50 people can come to their church. Some pastors are trying to desperately find measures to get around this law by removing all but 50 members from their church membership roll. For example, churches that have 400 members are now removing 350 of their members from the church rolls. But of course, Christians whose names are removed are greatly offended, as you can imagine, and wonder what will happen to them. Will they be forced to gather somewhere else in groups of 50? Will they be able to even attend their own church as visitors right now? Nobody in Russia knows. Further, the Russian government is requiring everyone who leads in a church ministry in any way, such as Sunday school teachers or youth pastors, they must go through government training programs and receive a government certificate to continue to teach or to lead. The problem is that the government has their own curriculum and will tell these Christians what they can do and what they cannot. And it's certainly obvious that the Christians cannot comply with government rules as to how they conduct, church ministry. Providentially, while the government has restricted the church in almost every facet of life in Russia today, the printing presses inside Russia are still acceptable. But I estimate that we have less than 10 months to get these requested books printed inside Russia before the doors close completely. In past years, I have conducted 40 megacity campaigns in Russia, and as a result of our activities in Russia, 1,600 new churches have been started, thanks to the literature that we have printed in great numbers. It is the Christian people in these new churches that are the ones that are requesting the 1 million more Power to Change books so that they can give them to their family members and to their friends across Russia. I urgently need your help to provide these books for them. We have a short time to do this. And please know that I am very thankful for all of you who have already given. May God bless you as you share our burden to help our brothers and sisters in Russia.
Folks, the situation has drastically changed for the churches in Russia. And if you would like to help provide these Power to Change books, there are 5 ways that you can provide the needed books and help our ministry's outreach. First, if you'll give a gift of $30, your gift will provide 45 books for people in Russia. Second, for a gift of $100, you can provide 150 books. Third, for a gift of $500, you can provide 750 books. And fourth, for a gift of $1,000, you can provide 1,500 books. Fifth, for a gift of $5,000, you can provide 7,500 books. And if you're able, and God lets you, a gift of $50,000 will provide 75,000 books for people. Hanu has received an emergency request from 1,600 churches in Russia, and they need our help now before the door closes for good. If you'll help, please call us now at 1-800-805-3030. That's 1-800-805-3030. You can call that same number any day this week, 24 hours a day. Or you may also go to our website at jashow.org, where we have a secure place for you to give your gift. The circumstances in Russia for Christians has drastically changed for the worse. Now, the need is very urgent. If you can help, I hope you'll do so today. Please call us right now at 1-800-805-3030.